everyone, I'm Diane Hall with AARP Missouri, and I'd like to welcome you to Flexibility and Function. This is the 7th class of our 8-week series created and led by Tyler Ferguson. Only one more class left in this series. However, if this is your first time in class, our aim is for all of us to gain flexibility and have some fun doing it. And the gains will take some work, but Tyler will take us through that in a minute. You may think that what we're doing isn't a real workout, but this kind of movement is the kind that enhances your flexibility and function, and it will contribute to your success in other physical activities you take on. So sometimes that slow, controlled movement can be more challenging and more beneficial than those faster, jerky ones. So this is a good class to get you ready for other classes. Now, AARP Missouri believes that offering classes like this gives more people a chance to participate. Though we do have in-person things like walks and hikes and bike rides, however, sometimes a virtual class may be more convenient for some of you. If you're a caregiver, for instance, or maybe you just like to watch this later on our YouTube channel. Whatever works so you can participate when it's more convenient for you. However, and whyever you participate, we are glad that you're here and hope that this helps enhance your commitment to a healthy, active living lifestyle. This is a great foundational class, and you can find many of our previous fitness classes, including past episodes of this class, on Missouri's YouTube channel at youtube.com/AARPMO. Now, this class is suitable for many levels of fitness. However, you know your own limitations. Please do not try to go beyond what you know is right for you. If you have any concerns, check with your doctor before participating in this or any other AARP fitness offering. Now, in addition to our online fitness classes, AARP also has resources for caregivers, up-to-date COVID-19 information about home modification, technology information, as well as all kinds of upcoming activities on our website at aarp.org/nearyou. That near you means that if you're joining us from Kansas City, you'll see stuff that's near Kansas City. If you're joining us from Hawaii, first of all, it's really early there, but you'll see stuff in Hawaii. So aarp.org/nearyou. And we do have lots of activities going on and some volunteer opportunities to make a difference in your life and your community. There are options to volunteer virtually or in person. You can volunteer regularly or just once in a while. Please check our website at aarp.org/Missouri to find out more. Well, now I'm going to turn this over to our instructor, Tyler Ferguson. Tyler, let the in.
Good morning, everyone. Hello. We're going to begin this morning standing. We begin all of our classes. If you're new to us this week, we love to practice barefoot. Then that means without the socks too. If for some reason you can't go barefoot and you need your shoes on, that's perfectly fine. It's just a suggestion that you go barefoot. Really allow the skin on the bottom of your feet to connect to the earth. You'll notice I'm just kind of rocking back and forth, spreading out the fascia on the bottom of my feet. So I'm going to invite you to do that with me. You'll notice I'm doing that in my hands too. Sometimes the movements in our hands can be mimicked in the lower body. So I'll come to stillness. If I wanted to lift all 10 toes, lifting my 10 fingers kind of helps me connect to and find the lift of the toes. Let's go ahead and do that again. Now, right away, notice when you lift your toes, is there a shift in your balance? Do you tend to fall backwards or possibly forward? If so, bend your knees, reset. You want to find the big toe mound or the big toe knuckle. No, it's the mound. Big toe mound, piggy toe mound, and then the inside and outside of your heel. Stack your hips and your shoulders over that. So when the toes lift, there isn't a shift in your balance, in your weight. So that's a great balance exercise right there. It could be that you're relying on your toes a lot, even gripping, so that when you lift them up, you tend to fall forward. Okay, now that we're nice and grounded through the feet, let's work the shoulders a little bit. Bring your arms out in front of you. We're just going to do chasing shoulders. We learned this one last week or the week before. So you're just elevating one shoulder up to the ear, pulling it back and placing it down, elevating the other shoulder and putting it down. It's called chasing shoulders. And it should feel kind of juicy and nice. So you don't have to go up to the highest extreme on the, that's possible. Just get in there and start to juice it up a little bit. Bring some blood flow, some movement into the shoulders. What you might strive for here is lengthening at the elbow. That can be a struggle for some people. As the biceps gets tight and as gravity works on us, we start to curl in. So just finding that extension could be most of the work you're doing today. Now, take your circles the other direction. Take your shoulders forward. That one's a little bit harder for me. When I practice this without the video, I do it fine. When I look at the video, get a little kooky. All right, and then pause for a minute, shake it out. Now we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna chase those shoulders, but we're gonna let the rib cage rotate. So I'm gonna elevate, and as I pull back, let the rib cage go. And then elevate the other side, let the rib cage go. I'm over exaggerating it a little bit, but just allow some movement in the ribs and the hips, nice and supple in the upper body. Great work. All right, let's shake it all out. We're going to point and shoot here. Bring your hands together. Make pointers with your fingers. Without changing your hips too much, just press your fingertips to get away. And notice that your shoulder blades are separating from one another. Get a big stretch across the rib cage in the back. Look at your thumbs. Inhale. Now separate the hands. Bring your elbows back. Shoulder blades together. Proud chest. Okay, this is your spine inflection or scapula together. Let's push the scapula away. Now your spine is a little bit more in flexion. And then bring the elbows in. The spine is a little bit more in extension. Play with that one more time and really feel the shoulder blades moving away from one another and then close to one another. And then today we're going to load that. So the easiest way to load that is to bring your hands on the wall slightly under your shoulders, step back a little bit, press the shoulder blades away, bring the shoulder blades together. So I'm not bending a lot in my arms. Now you can stay at the wall. If you don't have a wall, you can load this right on the chair, shoulder blades together, shoulder blades away. If you're comfortable getting down on the floor, tabletop position, this is not a strength movement, it's a mobility movement. Shoulder blades together, shoulder blades away. So we're just trying to increase the movement of the scapula with the feedback of weight going into the hands, closing the chain of our exercise. So again, it's not a push-up, all right? You might see a little bend in the elbow, but that's just to facilitate movement in the scapula. Go ahead and come out of that when you're ready. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, if you were in a class and I could see you, I would probably be correcting about half of you for pushing the ground away and then trying to do some kind of push-up with these super, super bent arms. That's not the goal. Push the ground away, bring the chest down, but see, my arm stays straight. It's just the scapula that's moving. So if you want to give that a try again on a wall or on the floor, tabletop is the easiest place to make sure your arm is straight, but I realize some of you struggle to get on the floor, so a wall or a chair will work. Again, it's not a strength exercise, it's not a push-up. We're just trying to mobilize the scapula with the feedback of our hands on a solid surface, closing the chain of the exercise. Okay, you can go back to this video to watch one. We're going to move on to our next exercise. If you're on the ground, come on up and just find some circles. Just juicy circles, again, bringing some fluid, some movement into our shoulder joint, and then take those circles the other direction. And then if your shoulders can tolerate this, bring your arms down to your side, just start to find some shoulder circles. Just start on one side, and then notice my rib cage is really moving, rotating a lot to facilitate that circle in the shoulder. If you have an injury and this feels yucky, just skip this one out or just come forward and back, okay? I totally understand that there are shoulder injuries out there. Mine's pretty fresh, so no problem. Be good to yourself. Always meet yourself exactly where you are. Never ask yourself to do anything more. Scrunch your fingers in, make fists, and then flick it down. Flick it a little bit higher, flick it out in front, and then just start to make your way up as high as your arms and shoulders can tolerate. We'll try that one more time. Make a fist. Flick down, in front, more lateral, almost right at your shoulders, and then move up to the level that feels good to you. All right. Now, bring your right arm up. Again, shoulder injuries. We're just reaching to the sky and stretching. Shoulder injuries, you just stay right out in front. You don't have to go up and overhead, or you can kind of go out like a Y if that feels better to you. But if this overhead reach feels okay to you, what we're really striving for is whatever fingers are up, we're getting a stretch in that side of the body, right? The space on the outside of the rib cage to the top of the pelvis. And then breathe, right? Big deep breaths while you're stretching and reaching. Good. Push down through right foot as right hand goes up. Push down through left foot as left hand goes up. And then bring your hands down, shake it out. We're going to go for that big side bend. We'll go to this modified position, hands right on the elbows. Lift your rib cage up out of your pelvic bowl and then come up and over. You can tug on that elbow, and by elbow, the long side of your body. You can give that elbow an extra little tug. Keep both feet grounded into the floor. Can you lift your toes here? Huh? Yeah, right. All right. So are you grounded through those bones of the feet? Pull yourself back up. Now you're going to lift and pull on that opposite side if that feels safe, and come over to the other side. Breathe while you're over here. Feel grounded through both feet. Give yourself the toe test. Lift all 10 toes up. Nice work. Bring yourself right back up to the beginning. Back over to the right side again. We're going to go into our circles. So it's a side bend. Now the knees bend a lot. The hips go back. I'm going to sweep across the floor. Eye gaze is down. And I'm going to wind up in that lateral position in the other side and then come up to standing. So it's up to you how far your chest travels down to the floor or travels toward the top of your thighs. So for a more moderate circle, you keep it square. We're going to go one more time. And for a deeper circle, you're going to let your head hang heavy and get your chest a little closer to your thighs. Make a good choice. What's best for you? Let's pause right here and come at the top. You might feel a little bit dizzy. If you interlace your fingers and press down on your head, that can help you just recover if you're feeling a little dizziness. That's my alarm for my warm up, but I do want to get the other side. So let's circle over to the other side and then let yourself move into circles. Think about what distance works for you. Connect your breath to your movement. Keep breathing and notice how the breath facilitates movement, creates spaciousness in your body or stability. If you want to explore going a little bit deeper, you can do that. Try not to lock out the knees here. A generous bend in the knees is going to create some slack in the hamstrings so that your low back can get the juicy benefits of these circles. And then I will meet you up at the top. Bring your hands down, shake it out. One last warm up before we get into our exercises today. Hands are going to go right on the hips. Feet are about hips distance apart. I'm not going to overcoach this. We're just going to go into big, juicy hip circles. So in the past, I've taken a lot of time having you experience hiking the hips up and feeling the inner thigh stretch, what it feels like to move your hips into extension. But today we're just going to circle. You can look at previous videos to get more coaching on what you're feeling in that movement. What I just want you to become aware of right now is that it feels good and juicy, bring some blood flow to the hip area, and that your feet are nice and square and grounded on the floor as you move. And good. We're going to move to some single leg and split stance work. We did straddle work. We're going to move to split stance work. If you have a wall or a chair for balance support, that's going to be best because even though it's a split stance exercise, the point is not to balance. So take the right toes, step them back, but you want to keep the weight in your front leg. This front knee is sort of bent. So if I were to bring my heel up off the ground, I'm not going to fall. Okay, the weight is in my front leg. I put my toes back. So find that extension in the chest. So we did that, we pressed away and we rounded, right? Then we brought our chest, our back into extension. Find that in the chest. So that's a proud chest, and then low belly wall in, and start to hinge down. But keep the chest proud. Keep pulling the chest forward. Keep the back in extension, shoulder blades toward one another. Pause. Now press through your front leg. Press back up to standing. Good. Lift and lengthen, proud chest, low belly wall in, and hinge. Keep that proud chest. Your eye gaze is going to be a little bit more forward. Since it's not a balanced posture, you're not bringing your eye gaze quite down to the floor in front of you. Keep that soft micro bend in the front leg. We're trying not to lock out that front leg. So you should feel this in your glute and your hamstring, but you're also going to feel like you're really working your thoracic spine, strengthening your back here. I haven't demonstrated holding on to a chair for balance, but that's certainly okay. Let's go 2 more. Proud chest. Keep pulling your heart forward, shoulder blades toward one another. I'm going to give you one last cue. Now, what can tend to happen here is the hip drifts outside the plane of the heel. That can happen, right? We get this drift. So pull that hip back in behind the heel, find your final hinge, and keep pulling the hip in toward the midline, in back behind the heel. You're going to feel a different sensation in your hamstrings when you do that. You'll have better alignment. Push down through the foot, come back up, step your back foot forward, and then just march it out. Swing your arms and breathe. Okay. We're going to find that on the other side. So we've definitely complicated the exercises somewhat since our first time together. And then if you remember the measuring sticks that we did in our straddle stance, that applies here to this extended spine. We'll visit that on this side. So now split stance on the other side, left toes are down. Weight is in the front leg. If I bend my knee, I shouldn't have to shift. So that's all that toe is a little kickstand. Find your measuring sticks here, lift and lengthen through the spine. You can hold on and keep one measuring stick. Now pause for a moment with me. If your thumb is getting closer to your pinky, you're flexing your spine. What we're practicing is extending our spine. So create that distance, find that extension, hip hinge, thumb and pinky, stay away from each other as we stay in extension through the spine. Soft micro bend in the front knee. There you go. Measuring sticks can be helpful here. So there's a lot going on in this exercise. I would say what we're really targeting today is being able to hinge with extension. Second priority, please don't lock out your knee. Third priority, where is your hip traveling to in the exercise? Are you gaining stability by letting your hip drift off the mat? Become aware of that. Pull your glute behind your right heel. Keep pulling to the midline of the body. You're going to recruit more muscle there. You're going to recruit those inner thigh muscles there. So ultimately, that's going to support your work. But you just have to, but it takes work to engage those muscles. How about one more from everyone? Make your way back up, bring your back foot forward, and then stand and walk it out. Now we're going to do another split stance exercise here. You're welcome to stay right here with the chair and step back. That's fine. For those of you that are super comfortable getting down on the floor and would like to try it on the floor, you can go ahead and get down however you get down on the floor. If it's like this, you can do that. But we're just looking for a split stance, 90-90, feet and knee is in a train track. Not on a tightrope. So they're separate, not in line. Okay, I'll just show you standing. This time, your right foot's going to go back or your knee, and your heel is going to come down. Reach your hands forward, bend in the front knee. Just peel yourself open. Broaden across the shoulders, and then you can swing down and come back. Same thing, kneeling. Peel yourself open. Feel the right ridge. I'm showing my arms and fingers, but the sensation should really be at the rib cage, right? Technically, if there were no arms involved, we're still feeling the rib cage rotate, swing it down and back. Now listen up, folks. When you peel open, what does your front knee do? Is it following you and the hips following you? We don't want the knee to follow. So engage those inner thigh muscles. Don't let the knee follow. Make sure it keeps tracking forward right over those toes, right where we started. Final time, you can either peel open or you can do a big circle open and still feel how you get that rotation in the chest. Bring yourself back to front. Back leg comes forward, other leg steps back. If you're down on your knees and you're 90-90, just come to tabletop and send your other leg forward. I think it was this one this time. Nope, it's this one. There we go. And then arms back front, standing or kneeling. Go ahead and begin to find your rotation here. Again, now we know about that knee and its tendency to travel. So there's this really juicy place where you're feeling the front heel dig in and you're creating a little traction from the grounding in your foot in front and then this rotation in the rib cage. Move nice and slow, okay? So I want you to really feel it, really put your mind or your awareness in your rib cage. And then on your fourth or fifth one, you can play with the shoulders like it, rotating open into that place. Is that 4 or 5? I hope so. All right, back foot steps forward. If you are on your ground in your tabletop, go ahead and get up off the ground, whatever your strategy is for getting off of the ground. We're gonna do this one in a standing position. We're gonna get into chair pose, a yoga shape. Arms come forward as a counter, and then the hips hinge back as if you're gonna sit down in a chair. It's up to you how low you wanna drive your hips. All right, if this is newer for you, you can work right here. If you wanna work a little deeper, be my guest. If you bring your hands to prayer, that might make it easier to keep the lever shorter. Now, you're gonna shift your weight onto your left foot. If you prefer to work near a chair, feel free to do that. And then you're gonna tap your right foot out in front, bring it right back. You're still in chair pose. You're gonna reach out to the side, come back, you're still in chair pose. Reach back behind you, come back, you're still in chair. You can hold on to a wall. Here's the most challenging one. Reach behind and come back. Woo, and then stand up and shake it out. Yeah, so kind of easing into a little single leg balance there. Let's try that on the other side. For chair pose, if you want your legs squeezed together, that's fine. Just do whatever feels best for you. Come into your chair. Go as low as it works for you. Use a wall or a chair for balance if that's best for you. Shift your weight into your right leg or your other leg now. Taking the weight out of your mobile leg, reach it forward and tap. Tap back center to get your balance. Reach out wide. Tap back center to get your balance. Tap back behind. Weight stays in this balancing leg, the stable leg, and then reach behind. And then step back up and shake it out. Let's try that again. So you have a couple of options here. Don't go sit so low. If that is better for you in this exercise, sit lower if it's better for you. Let's go ahead and get ourselves set up. And then for an extra balance challenge, what you can do, weight is in the left leg, right leg gets light. You can tap, you can touch here, or you can hover. Tap out, hover. You make the choice that's best for you. So it's a balance challenge, but you should pick the level where you feel like you have success. Put your leg down, straighten it up, and then we'll try it on the other side. Find your chair pose. Weight is in the right leg this time. For me, you might be switching it up. Left heel peels up. Reach out in front and give it a tap. Hover or touch out to the side. Hover or touch back behind. Your hip is an extension here. Hover or touch and reach behind. Hover or touch. All right, so that's our balance challenge for today. We're going to get down on the ground and do our bird dog quadruped. But remember, that's something that can be done at the wall, visiting that chair pose again, finding our bird dog shape. That's the leg, that's the arm in our bird dog shape. Or you can do it with your hands on a chair. But I'm going to cue it from the floor today. So down, hands and knees, spread the fingers wide in our quadruped shape. So you want to set up a good foundation if you're down here. Wrists are under shoulders or just in front of shoulders, whatever works for you. Knees are right below the hips. If the knees are back behind the hips, it's going to be more of a core workout. So we're distributing the weight evenly. And a common tendency here is to have the knees together. And that challenges your balance. So go ahead and bring the knees apart right under the hips. We'll begin by finding extension in that back leg. So send that back leg long. If you're on the wall, you're just pulling that back leg behind you. What you want to feel is this openness in the front of the hip. Now, the tendency is to rotate and try to move the pelvis and stack the hip. We don't want to move the pelvis. We only want to move the femur head in the stable pelvis. Good work. Option to take the opposite arm forward. Now notice, have you collapsed in that scapula? Can you push the ground away in the arm that's on the ground? Good. Left arm comes down, right knee comes down. Take a little child's pose or a rest. If you're on a chair or a wall, just come to standing. Now a child's pose is just a rest position, but depending on how much flexion your knees can tolerate and how much flexion your hips can tolerate, your child's pose might look just like this, might look like that, might look like that. So take the shape that works best for you. And then chairs and walls, let's get set up on the other side, come into your chair shape. Everybody else, quadruped on the floor, left leg is going to reach long. Again, you're trying to move the femur head in the hip socket. You're trying very hard not to rotate and move the pelvis here. That can be kind of challenging. Opposite arm reaches forward, and then the hand that's on the ground, push the ground away. That scapular protraction that we practiced on the wall or on the floor. So the scapula is moving away from the midline. That'll keep some nice stability in the shoulder, but the shoulder is sliding down and away from the ear. Draw your low belly wall in. Take a breath. Right hand goes down, left knee goes down. Take a rest. Stand up if you're standing. Sit back if you're on the ground. Now, we talked in other classes about wrist strategies to mitigate any discomfort in the wrists. You can go fists, 4 wrists here. If you have dumbbells, you can grab dumbbells here. Or if you have yoga blocks or cookbooks, you can just come down to your forearms, right on those yoga blocks and cookbooks. We're going to do this exercise again. We're going to make it a little bit more challenging and different. So find extension through the back leg. Option to take the arm long here. Notice your spine. Keep it in this neutral position. Can you bring your knee to your elbow without changing your spine? So you're not rounding, your pelvis isn't changing, your back isn't arching. You're isolating the movement to the shoulder. Now, my knee and elbow don't touch. I didn't say, can you touch your knee to the elbow? I say, can you bring them toward one another without changing your spine? Come down and rest. Get off your wrists if you're down on the floor. I know this is a wristier exercise, but for those of you that can tolerate it, hopefully this is meaningful to you. Plus, we'll have a video so you can take rests in between. Opposite side, left leg reaches long. Dial that hip down. Remember, we're isolating the movement to the hip joint. Find stability in the core. Low belly wall pulls in. Option for the arm to come long. Now, how would you regress this exercise? Keep the arm out of it, right? You can pull your knee in and under and take your leg long. Are you still getting the benefits from the stability? Sure. Are you still getting mobility in the hip? Sure. Then you can bring your knee down and then just do it with your arm. So you guys are smart enough to regress this exercise in a meaningful way. Bam. Bob is your uncle. Let's rest for a second. I do have another wristy one on the floor. So I'll demonstrate the standing version. We've already done this standing together. So we're going to work on hip abduction and hip extension. So abduction, hold onto your chair, stand tall, and you're just taking your leg out to the side. So that's the standing version of this. But if you're already down on the ground, I'm going to show you a down on the ground version of this. This is old school. This is fire hydrants, right? Ground in, just open up your right knee, bring it together. So whether you're standing or whether you're on all fours, notice if you're on your knees or even if you're standing, your tendency to let the goal be more important than the work. I don't care how high your knee gets. If this is all your range, which this is all my range, why would anybody feel the need to get here and get all cattywampus? Don't. Just allow yourself to feel your range and come back home. Find your range, come back home. We're stabilizing these outer hip muscles. I think I spoke last week about the tendency to stand and then just place ourselves in one hip or the other hip. So we want to strengthen these outer thigh muscles, come down on the forearms if the wrists are giving you a hard time, or come to fist if the wrists are giving you a hard time. So I'm talking for a long time for a purpose, so we keep doing this. But we're going to strengthen these outer hip muscles so that when we stand, we can stand equally in both legs. All right, come back off those wrists, shake it out. People on the chair or the wall, just set yourself up for success on the other side. Here we go, use your wrist options, and then we begin to do our work. Now remember, working slow and controlled movements that fall within your range of motion is all I'm asking for you. I am not asking for you to lift your knee as high as your hip. So if that's your goal right now, get it right out of your head. It's not a realistic goal for most. I'm not lifting my knee as high as my hip. If you feel like you have to do this faster or get in a lot of sets, or I'm sorry, a lot of reps, that is not the goal right now. This is slow and controlled movement. Where are you feeling the work? Hopefully it's on the outside of the hip of the leg that's moving. How can you assist with this work? Drawing the low belly wall in, stabilizing through the core can always help out. And if you're down on the floor, remember, don't let the shoulder blades come together. Push the ground away. Go into your fingertips like you're gripping a basketball. Whatever strategies you use, keep your mind active. Keep exploring different parts of your body. And that sort of takes the monotony, takes your mind off the work. Woo. I'm working up a little sweat here. Okay, if you are on your hands and knees, go ahead and come to your seat. If you're working from a chair or a wall today, go ahead and have a seat in your chair. We're going to do our bridge hip thrusts. Our chair alternative today is a little bit more quad dominant, but that's our alternative. So more chair work for you guys. You're going to hover, touch, and stand up. Touch and stand up. Now don't get started unless you want to do extra work, because I got to tell people on the floor what they're doing. People on the floor, you're coming down, backside, knees are bent, feet are down on the ground. You're going to drive your elbows down into the floor, fists right up against the wall, and then push your hips up into a bridge, lower back down, kiss your glutes right on the mat, and push them up again. As the hips push up, pause, squeeze the glutes, drive the elbows down, lower down. Now, keep your back ribs. So chair people, you can go ahead and start now. Floor people, keep your back ribs pretty attached to the floor. So this isn't a yoga bridge where we're rolling all the way up and opening our heart right now. We're not doing that, right? This is a hip thrust. So I really want you to feel your glutes and hamstrings fire, lock it at the top, lower it down. Drive it up, lock it at the top, lower it down. Again, work within your range, work with the amount of reps, the amount of intensity that works for you. These should be exhausting. These should be tiring for you. I'm specifically saving that toward the end so you can feel that. Inner thighs, don't let them get loosey-goosey. Squeeze that beach ball on the inner thighs. Let's go 2 more. You've got this. Drive the elbows in, squeeze at the top, low belly pulls in. Last one, hold it up there, squeeze. Big inhale, always breathe while you're working. Lower your hips back down to the floor. Now, have a seat in the chair. Walk your feet wide in the chair. Walk your feet wide in the floor. Make sure you're sitting in the chair enough that you don't fall out. If you're on the floor, both knees are going to windshield wiper over to the side. So it looks like this. And then only let the knees go as far as it feels safe and comfortable in your body. If your feet need to slide to get more comfortable, go ahead and do that. Come up for a second. So if you're in your chair, you're just going to let your knees fall over to the right. Okay? People on the ground, draw your low belly flush in, bring your knees back up to center, and then let the knees, don't fall out of your chair. Let your knees fall over to the other side. People in the chair, same thing. You're just taking your knees from center and letting them drop on the other side. So if you're in the chair, you'll notice my feet are kind of rolling up off the ground. People on the ground. Yeah, so this is a nice way. Often when we do those, go ahead and bring yourself back to center. People on the ground, stay on the ground. Often after we do that bridge work, we want to bring our knees into the chest right away, but that's a lot on the nervous system because our spine was just in extension so much. So to take it right into flexion is a lot. So just doing these little windshield wipers. So in the chair and even on the ground, see what it feels like just a windshield wipe back and forth. This is great hip mobility. And surprise, surprise, what does this feel like, everyone? People on the ground, go ahead and drop your knees over to the right. Bring your opposite arm. So if your knees are on the right, bring your left arm over, push yourself up into a side plank. 90-90, it's shin box, right? So we all know shin box. Let's do this. If you're all up, stack your knees on top of one another. If your chair or wall, you're just going to lean into the wall. We're going to work on our side planks just a little bit here. Elbow right under shoulder. We're working on this tissue, rib to pelvis relationship. Knees drive down on the ground, hips lift, and then we're crunching, making the ribs go closer to the pelvis. Usually I'm trying to pull that area apart. Now I want to make them go closer. Let it come down. Closer. Now, ribs, they're rotated open. Good. Little side plank. After you've pulsed, go ahead and hold it up. Keep rotating it open, driving down and crunching rib cage to your pelvis. No, the video didn't freeze. And then lower back down. So people on the ground, you're going to make yourself or make your way to the other side of your body. Knees bent and stacked. By the way, you want to have like landmarks in your brain. So if you're working on a mat, you can use the landmarks of the mat. If you're working in a room, use the landmarks of the flat wall. You want your shoulder and your hips to be in a line that is parallel to the line of the back of your mat or to the line of your back wall. If you're on the wall, you're just working here on the wall, letting the hips come down, and then you're crunching, shortening the space between the rib and the pelvis. Hips come down, shorten the space between the ribs and pelvis. That's wall work. If you have a chair that's reliable or steady, you can get down on your chair. That's a little harder. It's just as harder as the wall. Oh, I know, because I'm full-legged from the chair. Forget the chair, just go wall or go floor. Otherwise, my people on the floor, go ahead and give me a couple lifts. Just working on getting that rib and that pelvis close to one another. Looking for about 4 lifts. And then after your 4th lift, hold and hover. Think about rib cage to pelvis, little side crunch, working on your obliques, shoulder nice and away from the ear. We don't want this kind of collapsing relationship. That's why we worked on pushing away. 3, 2, and 1. Go ahead and bring your hips down. If you're in a chair or if you're standing, sit in your chair. Bend one knee and put it on the ground. Take one leg and reach it long. If you're on the floor, you're going to do almost the same thing. You're just going to bend that leg in. Good. So we're going to revisit that lift and lengthen in the spine idea, that spinal extension idea. If you're on the floor, you're going to lift and lengthen the spine and just walk your belly button toward the floor. You don't have to go very far before you start to feel some sensation. If you're in the chair, right leg is out, lift and lengthen in the spine, and you're just hinging forward. Looks like this, but it's that flat back hinge. Now my chair is on a surface where it's sliding, and this is what's happening to me. So make sure that doesn't happen to you. All right, floor people, come on back up. Send your legs long. Wiggle out your legs a little bit, and then bend your other knee in. It doesn't have to touch the ground or anything, and just bring it into where it feels comfortable. Lift and lengthen in the spine. Now, look what I'm asking you to do. Draw your belly button toward the floor. I'm not saying take your forehead to your toes or anything like that. You don't have to go very far before you feel some sensation. What I am trying to encourage you to do is stay flatter in your back rather than accessing this by rounding, trying to take your chin somewhere. That doesn't matter. Think about taking your belly button and letting your long spine follow your belly button. Same is true up in the chair if you're stretching through the other side. Make your way back up. People are sitting in a chair. You're going to bend your knees, plant your feet on the floor, but wider than your hips. People on the ground, plant your feet on the ground, wider than your shoulders. Lean back into your hands. People on the floor, see if you can let both knees come to the earth. You might have to sit up a little bit and forward, peeling that flesh off the ground of the internally rotated hip to tolerate this. You also might feel like you need to move. Probably the closer together, the better it feels. But if you feel like you can move to a 90-90, you can play with that. And then if you've achieved this, go ahead and just find some movement. If you're on the chair, you're just letting the knees fall to the side, finding some movement in the spine. Bring your hands back behind you. Draw your low belly in. Knees come back up to center. Reestablish the feet. Let the knees fall over to the other side. Let your chest come forward. Peel up that flesh on your seat. And then start to find some movement. You're not going to get as much hip mobility from the chair for obvious reasons. I'm in this big internal rotation, but you can still work in a range where you begin to feel some sensation and some challenges in the hips. The big thing in the chair is that the pelvis remains neutral as you rotate. Hands go back. So here on the ground, my pelvis is traveling a little bit because it's intense. It's really deep. On the chair, as you switch, the pelvis is going to remain neutral and the hips are going to roll in and roll out, but you're not peeling up the pelvis. You're trying to keep the sits bones in the chair. So that's what makes the chair version of this equally as challenging, because the pelvis isn't as moving much to facilitate. Okay, friends, we are out of time. It's been a pleasure and an honor, as usual, to get to spend this time with you. One more week left. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for coming.